Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as zone coverage and bring me the news. My co-host to your right is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. And we do this podcast every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. If you miss us, we're in podcast form, hence the name of the show, on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Adam, I was putting together this show and I realized we are at the dearth of summer. Some might even call it an abyss. There are good things about summer, especially in Minnesota. It's not cold. That's good. There are 10,000 lakes, even though I am no longer near one. I think there's one in Watertown, I believe, but it's like 45 minutes north of
big
Brookings,
lake
but
next to me.
Yeah, I heard it's like an ocean, but I wouldn't. I'm not.
Don't take a don't take a submarine in it. That's all.
Don't jump into a propane canister and try and go to the bottom of the ocean. That doesn't turn out well. Have you read about that?
I tried not to.
By the way,
I tried not to because I'm just like, this is
somebody told me about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do this very quickly because somebody
it's
told
summer.
me about it.
Like you said, it's June. Nothing to talk about.
Yeah, and I was just like, I thought it was a joke, because the Twins actually had a silent broadcast auction, and one of the things on there was to have dinner with Jim Cott. And Jim Cott, Hall of Fame baseball pitcher, if you're not a baseball fan, a little bit kooky at his old age, said some things that probably don't fly in this day and age. But I said to my friend, I'm like, why would you want to pay $27,000? I get it, he's a Hall of Famer. Why would you want to pay $2,700 to go have dinner with a guy who's just going to complain about baseball and munch on a well-done steak for like 2 hours? And his response was, well, it sounds better than spending a whole bunch of money and jumping in a propane can, So I thought it was like a joke. I'm like, and then I realized like somebody actually did that and they were in trouble and everything else. And they're like talking about like what conditions they're in. Like they're probably freezing to death and they're out of oxygen. And I'm just like, horrible ways to die for 500, Alex.
I think they ran out of oxygen this morning. If they hadn't already. It's just weird because from anything that I've ever read about it or heard about it is like they took a submarine down there, but it didn't have windows. So like, what are you going down there for? To like be next to it? Like, I don't
see it on a TV screen.
I guess. Like
here's this little 3x5 black and white
and
monitor,
they paid they paid $250,000 to go in there, and it's like, like you said, like you're in a can, pretty much.
It's almost like, like when you go to Universal Studios or whatever. And they have those rides. It's not like a roller coaster, but it's just like a theater on a platform or something. Yeah. And it like shakes all. Maybe like that's what you think it is. Like it's similar to that, but like way smaller. Or Well, R.I.P. to all those.
Just
involved.
A reminder.
I'm not trying to make light of it at all. No. I was just surprised that was not a joke. That actually happened.
It's just a reminder that the ocean is huge and fucking scary. Because
yes, I remember playing a game as a kid. I can't remember what the game was, but like you were in a submarine and you went around, and I remember like there's this big fish and it had like this little light on it. I mean, there's actual fish like that in the ocean, but I was just like, holy shit, we're done here. I'm gonna play Number Munchers instead or something. But to solidify our point, there's a lot of things to do in the summer. When it comes to sports, there's not a lot, especially in the Minnesota scene. You and I were talking, not Minnesota, but we were talking about the Padres. They're kind of scuffling right now. And, San Diego, they don't have anything else, right? It's just a one sport town now.
Yeah.
I mean, they have Aztec football
yeah,
coming out,
we're
but
working on it. They just got an MLS team. Stan Kroenke just signed up to help build an arena out here for a potential NBA or NHL team. So we're working on it.
NBA or so like I don't know. And expanding the NBA like 32. How many NBA teams are there?
28.
And only 20. I swear there's 30 now.
That's close.
Like, see, you would think Seattle and Vegas would get them. I don't know. I'm not going to like NBA. Okay, NBA. Let's talk about the NBA. The Timberwolves can't do anything because they traded for a guy who can't catch or play basketball.
Draft's tonight, right?
The draft is tonight, but the Wolves picked 53rd, so that's boring. The Wild, they're going to draft some guy that probably won't be ready for 2 years, and they'll probably do nothing but get bounced in the first round again. And then there are the Twins, which okay, but this is a Viking show, so we're going to talk about the Vikings, and we're just kind of sitting here waiting, and I think everybody right now is just bored.
Don't get arrested.
They're just bored. Yeah, that's the motto right now. Don't get arrested. Don't carry 2 loaded guns into the airport and go, oh my God, I forgot they were in my bag. Two loaded guns. Yeah. By the way, kind of might have had a little bit of a wait there. Like, I think Pat McAfee said, hey, like everybody going on vacation, can we just like take like 30 seconds just to do like a double check, open up the bags and be like, okay, no guns. Okay, we're good. We're going to the airport here, everybody. Check it before you get to the maybe his Uber. Maybe you woke up late for his Uber and he's like, oh my God, and just grabbed a bag and like, oh, forgot my guns. So nobody has been arrested on the Vikings yet.
Was Ali Udo the guy that did he get arrested?
And I think those charges were dropped.
Was that the summer or was that
bye week
mini camp?
That was the bye week. He went to a Miami club and he got accused of something girl in a bathroom or something like that. Anyway, we're all bored. We're all just speculating. And this morning I woke up to 2 things. I asked Siri what the weather was, and she said, there will be a tornado today. Oh, that's comforting. Not just like a chance of thunderstorms. Some could be severe. No, full-blown tornado. Welcome to South Dakota, bro. Mike Florio wrote this article. I saw that the first thing I opened up Twitter and saw this morning is a little article by him talking about if the Vikings wait to extend Justin Jefferson. I'm not going to go through this entire article because there's a lot of speculating, but what he does mention is that there's plenty of noise out there. The Vikings will wait to extend Jefferson. They could regret it for a couple of reasons. He goes on a list. The price could go up. Jefferson could want to get the hell out of there, like other star receivers. A lot of layers there, which also goes back to how legit is this? Because this is like a whole hashtag sources. Yeah, I heard this. I heard that. And Mike Florio, very plugged in. He is one of the top football writers out there. And maybe his agent's like, yeah, they're thinking about waiting.
Good friends with Paul Allen.
Yeah. And at times. But I mean, what's going to happen. They're probably going to be like, should we wait to do? No, we should probably do this right now because Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in football, our face of the franchise and everything else. And if we let him walk, people are really going to ask what the hell we're doing.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be very surprised if Justin Jefferson does not have a contract before the start of the regular season. I'll be surprised if he doesn't have one before the start of their first preseason game. Teams are pretty much off right now. Like, this is the time for front office people, for coaching staff, for players, take a nice little vacation, get some rest before training camp. So no one's really negotiating any deals right now. And this goes across the league. Like, you're probably not going to see anything, maybe here and there, a couple free agents sign, but likely you're not going to see much, especially when it comes to a contract of like Justin Jefferson's nature, which could be record breaking. And the Vikings, I feel like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is pretty smart. He's not going to, let's wait it out a year and see if Justin Jefferson gets cheaper. Because even if Justin Jefferson, even if he gets injured, he's still going to want a lot of money. Even if he has an okay season, which is putting up Adam Thielen numbers. Or like he's still going to get paid a lot of money. So like there's no scenario where the Vikings wait and his price gets lower. There just isn't. So the talk of them like sitting on their hands and waiting and seeing what happens is just pure speculation. I feel like Florio might have talked to somebody and the person he talked to was like, I guess it could happen. He's like, oh, you said it's possible, so
Content.
we're gonna write it. And he's been doing this a lot with a lot of teams this offseason where like there's the smallest thing and he turns it into this giant conspiracy. Like he wrote about yesterday about like how the Cardinals and Eagles they were caught tampering, and so do people who made
Now, why would they do that? Why would
the
they do that?
people who made wagers on the Eagles in the Super Bowl, do they have a right to like sue for their money back because they were caught up in a tampering scheme? Like he's just like putting together as many strings as possible as he can. And I understand it's June. His site puts out like 20, 30 articles a day, probably more than that. So they just need stuff to write about. But at times it just feels like we are like pulling pulling straws or whatever, or pulling strings, just trying to just grasp at straws. That's what I'm trying to say. Just like trying to get anything you possibly can about anything being remotely possible, even if it's a 1% chance or a less than 1%, it's going to be written about. So I think there's no validity to Justin Jefferson to the Vikings waiting and seeing if Justin Jefferson is going to sign a contract extension or not, or if they're going to wait and see to give him one, because they would be dumb not to. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, it just like it's a very Pepe Sylvia. It's Pepe Sylvia season, isn't it? Like where the Always Sunny in Philadelphia clip where he's got like all the things to convince that Pepe Sylvia doesn't exist or whatever. I've never actually seen the episode. I just know what the clip is where he's like, the meme where he's like, going on and on and on like this. That's basically what everybody is doing right now. We could talk about Dalvin Cook right now because he was on the Adam Schefter podcast and he said that he and DeAndre Hopkins want to form a dream team. That would have been cool like 3 years ago. Hopkins is 31. Did you see the
picture I posted about that?
Yeah. You want to describe it? Because
it's the Sports Illustrated cover with Steve Nash and Dwight Howard after they signed with the Lakers. And it was like the NBA preview. I forget what year it was, but it was like, this is going to be fun because everyone thought like they were going to be like this super team. And then they did terrible. So.
Yeah. Like the Lakers have.
Well, it's like, remember when the Lakers COVID way back in the day signed like Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and they're like
ring chasing. Yeah.
It's going to work out when these guys are at the end of their careers. It always works out.
It's always hilarious when players go to a different franchise like a ring, like certain receiver who's from Minnesota who we'll talk about later. But yeah, they both want massive contracts. I don't think teams are really going to be lining up for that. Cook also said that the offense really wasn't his bread and butter as a pass first offense. They might have run the ball more if he wasn't getting, negative or 0 yards per carry on first down or whatever it was. And here's another thought. What if the Vikings were protecting his shoulder? The same one that Cook said is such a big problem. Like maybe the Vikings like, hey, we don't want to really damage his workload. Maybe we should give him, a little less carries or something. But I don't know. What did you think of that interview?
It's a bunch of fluff, as it should be. Just more like a kind of like a promotion for
sign me, please sign me. Yeah, somebody,
I'm
anybody.
Healthy,
yeah.
I think he mentioned he wanted a team that has a ground and pound offense and will feature him. And I'm like, so you want Mike Zimmer to be your coach? Like,
yeah, Mike Zimmer's not in the league anymore. Sorry.
I'm like, I can't think of a team right now in June, right before training camp, that wants to sign a running back who wants to be every down back and have the offense built around him. There is no team out there that either needs that or one already doesn't have that. Like the teams that would do that already have it. Like the Titans, with Derrick Henry. I guess you could say the Seahawks, but they have Kenneth Walker, and they just drafted somebody. Like all the old school teams you can think of that might actually emphasize running the ball more. They're already set. They already have their guys.
Yeah.
So I think
Denver's like the only
yeah,
place that might be
but
okay. And
they're
like,
not gonna pound. They're not gonna ground and pound or whatever he said. Um,
and I
yeah.
think too, like Ian Hartitz put it this way. He goes, the way the Broncos are structured, Javonte Williams is either going to rush for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 1, or he's not going to play until November. Right. Like there is no in between. Like,
and they signed. I think they
that is
signed
basically their
Samaje
situation.
Perine too, so they have something invested in him as well to play. Not that he's like amazing, but he did.
Yeah, I was about to say, is he good?
He did pretty well.
Like,
He did pretty well as the Bengals backup last year, so he's good as like a reserve, like a third down kind of back.
this is why, part of the reason I quit fantasy football, because it's just like, it's so damn random where it's like Samaje Perine, he's signed with the Broncos, and you're like, is he good? And then he'll go off for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns one week, or like, one of the biggest. It's summer. I can gripe about this in the league that I just left because of other reasons, not because I was like losing, but I had this dominant team, Jonathan Taylor. I had Justin Jefferson. I had Ezekiel Elliott, like prime Zeke Elliott, not prime, I guess, but I mean, like very good, like 2 years
still
ago,
had,
where
12
he had like a whole
touchdowns
bunch of
last year?
touchdowns. Exactly. That's why I made the trade. Like, I had this loaded team, and the guy that I was playing had Austin Eckler. He got hurt, and Justin Jackson was on the waiver wire. I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time picking up Justin Jackson just for a 1 week fill in. And next thing I know, Justin Jackson's rushing for like 50 fantasy points.
Well, that's like all the talk now. Like, first off, I feel like there's like 9,000 fantasy podcasts. Where like I'm like, does everyone just give? This is what everyone does now? This fantasy podcast? So I'll go on Instagram or whatever and look at some stuff, and every video will be from a different fantasy podcast. I found one yesterday where it was like talking about the Vikings and how they're rebuilding, and they're thinking about trading Darnell Hunter. And I'm like, you guys really did your research. Really did your research.
At least Darnell's like in the ballpark. Like PFF's like in the zip code. Like Darnell's just like
so you guys really did a lot of your research. But yeah, like it's the same thing with Alexander Madison. People are like, oh, he played 4 games and he had like 150 yards off of 30 carries in every game, and he had 20 fantasy points. And it's like, okay, that one that was in the old offense, because he didn't start last year because Dalvin Cook was healthy for every game, so Madison didn't start. So that was a totally different run scheme, an offensive scheme. And then so this year it's going to be in Kevin O'Connell's scheme, and it sounds like Kevin O'Connell's boosting him up to be he can be a 3-down back if he wants, but from everything that we've heard and read about mini camps so far, it's probably going to be a mixture of a bunch of people in the backfield. So for everyone that's drooling over Alexander Madison to be their sleeper in fantasy, I'd hesitate on that a little bit.
RB1 upside. Look at all these fantasy points he had. Yeah, well, Kevin O'Connell's not looking at fantasy points when he's as we saw with Dalvin Cook last year. Like, he doesn't give a shit about your fantasy team.
Like the Ringer Fantasy Football Podcast, and this guy Danny Kelly's on there. He does draft stuff too, and whenever he talks about Alexander Madison, he's always like, he's just a guy. Like he's just not good. He's just a guy.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. He's just a guy, and maybe I'm thinking in like fantasy football terms when we'll talk about Alexander Madison in a second here, because we're gonna go off season winners and losers. But I mean, I think a lot of people are just hyped up because they had Alexander Madison on their fantasy team and they started him for Dalvin Cook, and man, he was awesome. Even though he had like one big run against Detroit that like filled like half of his rushing yards. Nobody wants to talk
25
about that.
yards. It's around that. Like his longest carry is like less than 30 yards.
Efficiency, though. Efficient running game. Like I said, come October, if Alexander Madison is still the same guy, I am going to have
What do you think?
quite the victory
What do you think
lap.
Dalvin Cook's going to sign? He's going to sign like a 1 year, $4 million deal because I think it's trending that way. Like he's going to get a lot less money than he thinks he is. Like
You think he's going to sign that? Like,
what's he going to get?
He's getting $2 million from the Vikings.
Here's the thing with Dalvin,
like 1 year, 8. I think that's what he's holding out for. He got 10 in base last
maybe
year.
6 with incentives. Who's going to give him that then?
That's the thing. Is it going to be one of those situations where he's just going to play hardball until like late training camp and then walk in? And then at that point, do you know the offense? Do you know?
Well, I think he said, or there's been reports that he's willing to wait like during training camp and see if people get hurt, because that always happens. It does always happen with running backs. But is that team whose running back goes down? Do they want to spend money on Dalvin Cook? Like,
right?
Does he?
Well, if you ask Kirk, he's coming back to Minnesota.
Does he fit your scheme? Maybe it's not his bread and butter. So like. Is Dalvin Cook gonna be picky about where he goes because he's probably not gonna have as many opportunities that he thinks he is? Because it's just like I've seen a lot of stuff too where it's like people are feeling bad for running backs. And I'm like, I don't like this is what
Cecil Lammey said it best. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be running backs.
This is the nature of the business. It happens for a lot of positions. Like, back in the day, being an inside linebacker was, great position. Now it's like, okay, don't need you anymore.
Brian Asamoah, go get it.
Like, that's how it goes. Like this happens pretty much. Quarterback, left tackle, receiver, pass rusher. Those are the positions that are always gonna pay well. Everything else, probably not. So.
Oh, it's a fun time of year. You know why it's a fun time of year? Because we got like John Deere cult members, which are Packer fans, in case you don't know, jumping on the internet and saying Christian Watson has more upside than Justin Jefferson. I don't want to give this guy attention because it's the same group of Vikings people who crave engagement. Tell me when I'm telling lies. We're comparing Christian Watson to Justin Jefferson, who has the most receiving yards of any player in NFL history in his first 3 seasons, and Randy Moss, who legitimately blew the damn doors off to the point where the Packers freaked out and drafted like 5 defensive backs in the next draft. Like, game changer. And do you have that graphic that I sent you?
Oh yeah, I do.
Can you get it on the screen for our YouTube audience? And I'll just kind of pick around it. But stat head is a great thing. If you use it correctly, if you use it to tweak it until you get exactly what you want, not that great. But in this case, I said, hey, what did Christian Watson do compared to Justin Jefferson and Randy Moss? And I also wondered, okay, guy missed a couple games due to injury. What if he's like Odell Beckham Jr.? And I will preface this with, I think Watson's a good player. I think that he will be a top receiver for the Packers. He'll be the wide receiver 1. But this is another example. We just have too much time on our hands. Are you able to get the?
I thought I had it, but I don't. Give me a second. I'll keep doing it while we're talking. But I can talk and work at the same time.
Okay.
So
he's still trying to figure it out right now.
I get it.
Yeah.
This is great podcast.
I mean, I have it up on my screen as well. Just that's what I was kind of looking for. No, and I also got a text from my co-editor at the newspaper who doesn't seem to realize that, hey, 11 o'clock, I can't really talk to you right now because, whatever. But
perfect. Here we go.
Do you have it? Drum roll. Do.
We might have to go to the side. Here we go. Ready?
All right, ready?
There we
go. Okay, so for the podcast audience, I'll just kind of spell it out to you. So Christian Watson has this is the group I kind of chose out. We got Randy Moss, we got Justin Jefferson, we got Odell Beckham Jr., and we have Percy Harvin. Christian Watson had less approximate value, which is basically Pro Football References wins above replacement. He had 7, Harvin had 11, all across the board, basically, except for rushing yards per attempt and rushing touchdowns. Christian Watson did not even provide. He was not
on
Percy
7
Harvin.
carries.
He was not Odell Beckham. He was not Justin Jefferson. He was not Randy Moss. He wasn't even Chase Claypool in his rookie year. And we're sitting here going like upside. And I get it. The guy is a physical freak. What are we doing here? We're all bored. Like this is a problem. Like, do you see where I'm getting at here?
Oh yeah. I don't even like I don't know. I don't know. I know it's Packers fans delusion, but how can you sit there with like a straight face and say that your rookie receiver, who could one day develop into a good receiver, maybe even a great receiver, but at this point he has a higher ceiling than Justin Jefferson, who I believe just turned 24, and he's just coming off a season where he won Offensive Player of the Year, not Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, better than any offensive player in the entire NFL.
It's like the best offensive player outside of quarterback award.
And you want to talk about ceilings? He hasn't even reached his ceiling yet. So, like, what are you talking about?
I don't know, man.
Some of the replies are even better though than
everybody is going to value their own team's player higher. That's why we're talking about Alexander Madison RB1 right now. But at the same breath, it's just kind of like, why are we throwing names around the kid? Like, he's a good player. Like, I want to reiterate that. I think Christian Watson is going to be a very good player in this league. But when we get caught up in, oh, he's better than Randy Moss. Oh, he's better than Justin Jefferson. And also, too, it's kind of like it's that Packer trolling thing. Like, that guy's sitting somewhere just like cackling, like in the distance. Just like,
I think the tweet.
Look at these Viking fans. They're so angry.
I think his tweet had over 2 million views.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted.
Like, everybody knows who this guy. I had never heard of him before. No. Like, now he's got probably a whole bunch of John Deere cult members listening to his podcast, and even the Viking lemmings who can't come up with their own content. Tell me when I start telling lies. They're printing off
some of the replies from this tweet though are even better than the actual tweet. I think I saw yesterday that like Justin Jefferson is just like he just benefits off playing like the Bears twice a year and getting a bunch of single.
And Watson doesn't.
Getting a bunch of single coverage, and everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, did you watch? It's
tell me you don't watch the Vikings without actually watching the Vikings.
Yeah. Not even watch the Vikings. Pay attention to the NFL. The NFL posts his highlights all the time because he's good. This isn't like a bias because he was the Offensive Player of the Year. It's not bias.
Anyway, we've just burned about 30 minutes just kind of going over things we weren't going to talk about today or didn't really want to deep dive into. So I kind of prepared my own little list, and it is Vikings winners and losers because we're just in a holding pattern. And I think we're at a point in the offseason where coming into training camp, we can kind of look around and see, who do we want to talk about, in the words of Cody Rhodes, I guess. So what I did was I put together a list of 3 winners and 3 losers. And, we can kind of talk about them one by one. We can talk about them as a group, and you can, we'll just kind of wing it like we kind of have the rest of the show here because, we're kind of going off the rails. Winners. I have the number 1 winner in my offseason, in the Vikings offseason, is Alexander Madison. And here's why. Coming into the offseason, I thought he was off to be somebody's Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, like one of those guys you sign, maybe a Latavius Murray, the guy you sign.
Oh, yeah.
You're not, he's a solid running back, good starter in a pinch. Yeah, he still is that guy. Yes.
The Bills.
But that's true. Not a big James Cook guy. probably more explosive than his brother at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah. He was also coming off a year where he had 74 carries, 3.8 yards per carry, and they would not even play him over an injured Dalvin Cook. But now, RB1, baby, Alexander Mattison, he's got his money, $3.5 million, which is, high end of the running back scale,
more than I make,
unfortunately.
So that's good.
Yeah, that's a good thing. He's got the job. He might even have the girl behind the scenes. I don't know. But he also has Kevin O'Connell's admiration as a 3-down running back. So Alexander Mattison, big time winner?
To him, yeah. For the Vikings and fans, I don't know about that yet.
Yeah.
Not too sure. Jury's out still. I would love to see him take advantage of this opportunity and make the most of it. But it's what, year 4, year 5, and
yeah, year 5.
He's had 4 starts in his career.
Yeah,
and he decided. I understand he decided to come back to he was probably told yeah, you're gonna be the starter. So he's like, okay, fine. I like it here. I'll stay here. And so he signed, but he didn't have much interest from anyone else. That's kind of like a red flag for me. Where the Vikings didn't really have to compete. Where Dalvin Tomlinson, they wanted to bring Dalvin Tomlinson back, but the Browns just wanted him more and they gave him more money. And I know Madison I think he had interest from maybe there was some rumors about the Jets and maybe the Cowboys or something like that. Patriots maybe too. But yeah, it wasn't a bidding war for Alexander Madison. And to me, that's a little bit of a red flag where it's if other teams aren't interested in him, then why were the Vikings yes, he's our number one guy? It's for now, until Ty Chandler gets a carry for 30 yards once a game, and you're we should probably give him the ball more. So yeah, he's a winner this offseason, Alexander Madison, for sure, because he gets to go in without Dalvin Cook. He gets that opportunity, but I don't know if the Vikings are winners when it comes to him being RB1.
Another winner I have on my list is KJ Osborne. And you're probably sitting at home and you're going hey, didn't the Vikings draft Jordan Addison? But I get the feeling KJ Osborne is going to have a better year than Jordan Addison. And that's not to say he's going to go 2018 Adam Thielen or anything, but he knows the offense. He's taken on the leadership role in this locker room, and he understands his overall role in the offense. This is where I'm going to upset some people, because I think that in a best case scenario, KJ Osborne becomes Bernard Berrien. And I know a lot of Viking fans are sitting there going are you bleeping me right now? Bernard Berrien. Berrien had 71 catches, 951 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 2007 before getting paid by the Vikings in 2008. Who is to say that if Osborne has a similar year, kind of just takes a half step forward, right? Let's say team that needs some receiver help goes, let's sign KJ Osborne, the Christian Kirk deal, right? Who is to say he can't put up those numbers and get paid by another team? Maybe Adam Thielen whispers in the ear to the Panthers brass after next offseason and says, hey, I think he can be in wide receiver 1. Let's go get him. So am I telling lies here or what?
No, he can be the next Christian Watson.
Sure.
No, I think those numbers that you read about Berrien are that would be a very good season for KJ Osborne. And I believe 99 of those yards in 07 came on one play for Berrien.
People shit on Berrien because he wasn't a number 1 receiver. The Vikings overpaid. That was their mistake. But
did they bring him in to be the number 1 guy?
Yeah.
But then
2008, and then they drafted Sidney Rice. But Percy. In 2009, they drafted Percy. So I think they were disappointed after year 1. But he was I look at Osborne the same way as Madison. He's okay. He's a guy. You need guys on your team, right?
Yeah.
But with Addison's injury, I could see him kind of stepping into that 2 role. Maybe this is Addison has a respectable year, but he's not a bust like Laquan Treadwell.
Right. No, yeah, I don't.
I could see that happening.
I really don't know what to expect from Jordan Addison because we just don't know. He's dealing with some sort of injury, but they say that he's going to be ready for training camp, which is fine or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know what to expect. I think he'll get more opportunities than someone like a Treadwell did because Treadwell was in the old Zimmer influenced offense, which didn't really spread it out and get the ball to the receivers. So
It
I
was
feel like
Dalvin Cook's bread and butter, is what it was.
exactly got fullback CJ Ham back there. That's probably why it wasn't his bread and butter last year for Dalvin Cook because CJ Ham wasn't really there a lot as much as he was in the past, and Dalvin had to make his own holes instead of CJ Ham just leading the way for him. But yeah. KJ Osborne, yeah, I think he's gonna have a good opportunity. He does have the experience in the offense. He does have the edge over Addison being kind of hurt right now, and I would say right now he's on track to open the season as the number 2 guy. But you got to remember that Randy Moss opened the '98 season as their number 3 receiver behind Chris Carter and Jake Reed. So just because he opens the season as the number 2 doesn't mean that KJ Osborne's going to finish the season as the number 2. But I still think he has a good opportunity. But yeah, like you said, he's a guy. He's been in the league for this will be his 4th year, and if he wants to make money, he's going to have to play well, which I think he can. But he's got to do a lot more than he has in the past. But yeah. Of course, he's a winner. Thielen's gone. That spot's up for grabs. So yeah.
My third winner of the offseason, it's not a player, it's Kevin O'Connell. Because O'Connell established his culture year one. He was one of the big winners of last season overall when you think about it. Because it's like Mike Zimmer can't get the most out of this team. Kevin O'Connell comes in, boom, 13 wins, pixie dust, magic, culture, all that stuff, right? Now he's getting the personnel he wants. He wanted a more efficient running game. He added Josh Oliver to block, and he got rid of Dalvin Cook. He wanted a number 2 receiver. He got Jordan Addison. He wanted a more aggressive defense. He hired Brian Flores. He's put his stamp on this team, and now they're effectively doubling down on him after a 13-win season. The only thing better would be if he got a contract extension. So right. I think Kevin O'Connell is the other Viking that got a dub this offseason.
Yeah, I've got a few more winners too, as well, just to add onto this.
Bring it on.
I would say the entire defense.
Yeah.
Because Ed Donatell's gone, so they actually get to have fun and make plays now, especially Harrison Smith, who's probably going to feel like a little reinvigorated with Brian Flores and getting back to his old self, just being all over the place and causing havoc. Brian Asamoah, I would say, is a winner because in his second year, he gets the opportunity probably to be a starter and place Eric Kendricks. I mentioned CJ Ham. He's probably a winner because everyone pretty much figured he was probably gone, and they re-signed him or extended him or restructured his contract or something like that. I think actually they extended him, I think, for a year or two. So he's back. Part of their emphasis on being more efficient in the run game, and he's a good special teams player and a good locker room guy too. And then I would say Ed Ingram and Ezra Cleveland are probably winners because the Vikings didn't really do anything to give them competition on the offensive line, whether that's good or bad, but they come out of the offseason as winners and they're getting the opportunity to start again. So yeah, those are my winners. And then with losers, I had a difficult time. I agree with you on one of them, but I feel like I had a difficult time coming up with some losers for this offseason.
Yeah, the losers, the first one that I had was actually like a group. I could have went by them individually, but I mean, it's just a group of players that were losers. And it was the Vikings veterans. I'm specifically talking about Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen, Zadarius Smith, and Dalvin Cook. And I don't think any of these guys had like an epic breakup with the team. Kevin O'Connell was actually on Purple Daily last week, and he said, he talks to players, he gives them advice on where to sign and that stuff. And he's like, I care about these players, which is like a complete 180 from the other.
Can't believe he went on that show. All they do, it's just all they do is just troll and hate on Kirk Cousins. Can't believe he would ever just do that. God.
They asked it. Yeah, that's the term. Kirk is sitting somewhere going like, I can't believe he turned his back on me like that. That's like getting
eating ice cream with the enemy.
Yeah. Oh, I love D2. Like, honestly, if that is, I don't know if they ever did, speaking of that show, they do like the sports movie rewinds.
Mhm.
Have they ever done D2? Because like that has to be
I
at
don't
the
know.
top of the
I listen
list.
to rewatchables, like we
Yeah.
do with our games sometimes, and I don't know if they've done Mighty Ducks, but I know recently they did Dumb and Dumber, and that was pretty good. So
D2 is easily the best Mighty Ducks movie.
yeah.
I think we talked about that
Yep.
last
We
podcast.
did.
I don't know. Maybe if we get bored, we'll just, sick of all the, tossing stuff up. Like, what if the Vikings traded Justin Jefferson? What if they just flat out released him? Like, I'm hearing somewhere my hashtag sources are saying things. But I don't think any of these guys had the epic breakups, but I think a lot of them just got a reality check. Like Adam Thielen didn't get his role last year in the offense. He went and got his money in Carolina. Eric Kendricks, I mean, it was just time. I don't think there is anything that got ugly there, but
No.
maybe he did behind the scenes. Zadarius Smith, that one might have gotten ugly, but he might just need a better agent, so he stopped signing like
That would be his fault if it got ugly.
Exactly.
The Vikings were like,
you're not paying me enough money. You signed the contract.
Yeah.
Like it's like the Daniil Hunter thing.
And bye, see you later. What? Where are you going?
You're under contract, pal. Like, get back here. Dalvin Cook, we talked about him a little bit earlier with that whole thing. I mean, even the current veterans, you could say they lost in a way because on paper, I don't think this team is as good as it looked on paper last year. So you have a lot of veterans who are kind of like going back to the team going, but what do you think?
Yeah, I would say probably the guys from the old regime that are still left are probably a little bit on more high alert, like the CJ Ham, like Daniil Hunter, like Harrison Smith. There aren't too many guys that are left from that regime. I guess you could put Garrett Bradbury in there, Brian O'Neill. But there aren't too many guys that are even just left from that regime. But I would say those guys are probably a little bit more like, okay, if I don't have a good season, I'm probably gone.
Yeah.
Because I'm not one of their guys. But yeah, like all those guys had to go, regardless of their notable names or whatever. Like take the names off the back of the jerseys, look at their numbers, look at their age. Every team would have got rid of them, and their price. That played a lot into it as well. Every team would have probably done the same thing, if not more. I think the Vikings, and you might agree with that, like they probably made these decisions a year too late. But that's the decision they made to do, and so they started that kind of roster trimming process, and a lot of people from the outside look at it as rebuilding. It's not. It's kind of just getting rid of the trimming the fat, I guess, where like they weren't really helping. So why are you gonna? And they're not gonna get any better. Like a Thielen, he's already had his prime, unless you ask him or certain family members of his, that that it was time for him to go. If he didn't want to take less money. Same thing with Eric Kendricks. Same thing with Dalvin Cook. Like the Vikings were willing to be like, yeah, you can stay, but you are not making the amount of money that you are due. We did not sign these contracts. We did not make these contracts for you, so we do not feel attached to them in any way. So if you want to work out a deal to stay here, fine. If not, we're okay with that too. But yeah, it was time for a lot of those guys to go, and this happens to pretty much every team. The Vikings had a new head coach and GM. Why are they going to fix what the other guys did wrong? Why are they going to keep the guys from the old regime? They weren't going to do that, and they were never going to do that. So it's just part of the process.
Fun stuff. The veterans are kind of losers, but I'm going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum too for my second group of losers. It's the 2022 draft class. I know it's early. I know it's been 1 year, but everything we've read in minicamp, it's not great. It's not looking good. Lewis Seen was working behind Harrison Smith, Cam Bynum, and Josh Metellus. He was working with special teamers, and I understand he broke his leg. He's a little bit behind. We've talked about it a couple of times on the show that, it has been reported, or I don't even know reported, it has been speculated that he's more of a on-field, hands-on learner than a classroom learner, which is fine, but he needs to get on the field and contribute because you used a first-round pick on him. And by the way, you traded down from Jamison Williams, who I know he's suspended for 6 games. I would rather have a player get suspended for a couple of games than have him break his leg. Right. And you can't predict it, but I mean, Jameson Williams could come out of that suspension and just light the NFL on fire. That is possible. But
Yeah.
I mean, it just looks, it doesn't look great right now. And a lot of these things could change once we hit training camp. Like Andrew Booth Jr. seems behind Mekhi Blackman right now.
Yeah.
And a reminder that Booth and Caleb Evans were both Ed Donatel picks.
Right.
Could Flores look at those guys and be like, I don't really like what they bring to the table, and kind of get his own guy? And then, Ed Ingram, is he good? I think he's one of the most intriguing Vikings going into training camp, because the Vikings need him to take a step forward in pass protection.
If he's just average, that's fine.
That's it. He just needs to take a step to be an average guard in pass pro, because he's really good at run blocking.
Yep.
Like that's a good part. Like, honestly, we kind of joke about Garrett Bradbury being such a terrible pass protector and a good run blocker. But I mean, if Ed Ingram can be an average run blocker or average pass blocker, I'm getting it all confused now, and like this great run mauler, we'll take it. Like that's something the Vikings haven't had, I don't know, in 10 years. Like, it's been a while.
If the 2023 class plays well and they get a bunch of contributions from them this year, do we even care about the 2022 class anymore?
Right.
Like, I think some people will care about seeing, but I think like all that stuff will be like, because people are like, I've seen some things where people are like, oh, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, he already messed up 2 draft classes, like doesn't know what he's doing. I'm like, 2? Like,
you don't know about this one yet. And who knows?
That's because you don't know the players, or you don't think they fit, or whatever, or what. Like, doesn't mean they're wrong. Let them get on the field first. And I want to say that I feel like Kevin O'Connell probably had more of say, and we've talked about this too in the past. Like, he probably had more of a say this year in who they picked in the draft than last year, because he was busy just figuring out how to be a head coach. And this year he got probably a little bit more into the players that he wants on his roster. So it'll be interesting to see how these players are different from the ones they added last year, which last year was probably mainly Kwesi's decisions and his staff. And this year is probably a mix more of O'Connell and his staff and Kwesi and his staff. So,
and don't forget about Ryan Grigson, who
yeah, I'm wondering about him. Like, I wanted to look and see if he was known for like waiting too long to get rid of people. Like, I think about the Trent Richardson stuff, and how he traded for him back in the day, and that was just terrible. And then how he sucked at building an offensive line for Andrew Luck, and how I think his draft picks weren't that great either. So like, I'm like, how much of an influence does he have? Like that, I always questioned that hire as soon as he came on board. I was like, really?
Is he sitting in like a chair somewhere doing the gladiator thing, like thumbs up, thumbs down, like, or what?
We really, like, I understand he has experience, but wouldn't you want someone with experience who was successful?
Correct.
He wasn't really, and he had Andrew Luck as his quarterback.
Right.
So like, it's not like he was working with, Baker Mayfield and he was just trying to figure out anything to be better. No, he had a, life-changing quarterback on his team, and he ruined him. His decisions ruined the career of that quarterback. So I've always questioned that hire. It's funny that you brought that up, but like, yeah. You have one more person, right?
Yeah, I'll make it quick because we're kind of running long here. But Kirk Cousins, that's my last one. And I mean, you're just hating on Kirk. Well, no, because you think he was going to cash in for another fully guaranteed 1-year extension, right? Because I think, like I said last week, his value has never been higher. And the Vikings basically said, thanks, we appreciate the hometown discount, but no thanks. Kirk's going into the final year of his deal. There's a lot on the line for both sides. Either Kirk wins big, he cashes in a deal here or somewhere else, and the Vikings are paying $28.5 million in dead money for him to go play somewhere else. And then they also could find themselves without a decent quarterback option in 2024, creating a desperate urgency in next year's draft to go get a quarterback. So I thought about putting Kwesi here because he lost a lot this offseason. But I mean, when I look at Kirk, it's like your value has never been higher. Even if the Vikings were offering something with a whole bunch of funny money on the back, like, is that not like enough security for you? Is that, you know, I mean, and honestly, if the Vikings went ahead and they gave like this 5-year contract, like, you gotta look at it like, dude, it's 5 years. I've made how much money? Like, let's take what we get here. We can always negotiate. And if you believe you can play into your 40s, where's the problem?
Yeah. I would say Kirk, I think he came away from this offseason probably like a little bit in shock or surprise that like something didn't get done because he's probably going into it expecting like, hey, I'm at least going to get maybe a 1-year fully guaranteed deal or even a 2-year. Probably wanted 2 or 3-year deal, but that didn't happen. And then I think the Vikings still have like the edge in terms of even if they don't sign him to an extension before the season, he goes into next offseason as a free agent because he wants to be in Minnesota. He wants to stay there. He's had his family's grown up there and everything like that. That's important to someone like him, where like he doesn't want to pick up and move. Like he's comfortable. He's a person who's comfortable. We know this because of the way he is on the field. He he doesn't want to pick up and change. Of course, he will if he has to. It's the nature of the business, but preferably he would like to stay in Minnesota. So they're still gonna have an edge if it comes to they want to bring him back and negotiate next year. So I still think that, but yeah, I would say he's a loser in the fact that he wasn't able to get a deal done that he wanted from the Vikings. And you could say, like you mentioned, Kwesi could be in this category too because he just waited too long to get rid of guys like Darius Smith and Dalvin Cook. Like, just cut your losses, man. Like, he should have had all that stuff done before the draft. They could have had more draft capital, more cap space to work with, but he waited too long. And I think that'll be something that hopefully he gets figured out next year or soon because you can't be doing that. You can't. Next year, if Harrison Smith, if you want to get rid of him, if everyone knows you want to get rid of him, do it. Don't wait until May. Don't do that. Don't wait until June 1st when people get more cap space. Don't do that. Just get rid of him.
Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. It's going to be more beneficial for you in the long run if you just do that. You'll get through. You won't clear. Like you'll clear $3 million less in cap space if you don't wait until June 1st. Okay, but like, yeah. But I did see on the Kirk thing that I want to say it was Sean Borman from Vikings territory, who was pretty good with the cap stuff. And I did see, I think, if the Vikings sign Kirk to a new deal next year, even if it's a 1-year deal, that dead cap will spread over 4 years and it'll be like $7 million per year. So that's kind of an incentive to bring him back too.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I think the thing that bothers me about Kwesi is that we don't know what his plan is.
Right.
Like, I know he's kind of just attached to the hip with Ryan Poles regardless by default, because those were the two guys that were like considered for this job. But like Poles, you know what the plan is. And you can see the plan working. Like Kwesi, it's just like half the time we're like, what the hell is he doing? Like,
I would say it's worked for Poles yet because Chase Claypool reports are not doing that great about him.
No, that was not one of his finest moments. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? His deal was, I'm going to rip everything down. Yep. I'm going to clear cap space, and I'm just going to go hog wild to build this roster through the draft and free agency. Like Kwesi, it's like, well, we're going to extend Kirk, but we're not going to extend him too far. And like Justin Jefferson and like, it would be like, he gives that aura of not knowing what he's doing. Like
he gets in his own head.
Yeah. Like it feels that way. And he's a really smart guy. Like, I don't want to make it seem like he's an idiot or anything, but I mean, it also seems like sometimes it's just like, maybe it's like the Twins, like, love affair with analytics where it's just like numbers spinning around his head and everything else, where it's just like, dude, just don't overthink this. Like, give Justin Jefferson his money for God's sake. Don't do this. But
there's and it's his second year ever as a GM. I mean, you could technically say he's only been a GM for a year and a half. So like he's still learning. Like Rick Spielman made plenty of mistakes. 10, 15 years into his career. So like it's gonna happen. GMs are not perfect. Mistakes are gonna be made. For my losers, I would agree. I had Kirk Cousins. I put Kanei Wongwu in there because of the new kickoff rules. And
Yeah.
is he going to become as much of a weapon?
From what we've heard, he is second on the depth chart ahead of Ty Chandler.
For now,
it is mini camp though.
Yeah, give me a couple good preseason games from Ty Chandler, and that'll change pretty quickly.
Sure.
And then I would just say just the fans of those veteran players that were let go, because a lot of people love Dalvin Cook, love Adam Thielen, love Eric Kendricks. It's tough to see those guys go, but it is part of the business. We saw what in 20, like right after they signed Kirk Cousins in 2020 when Everson Griffin had to go. Of course, he came back, but like Linval Joseph had to go, Xavier Rhodes had to go. But they traded Stephon Diggs. Like this is part of the business. It's what happens. It sucks sometimes because a lot of people like Adam Thielen, a lot of people like Dalvin Cook, like these are guys that have a very good chance of being in the Ring of Honor one day. So guys just don't finish their careers with one team. It's very rare. I think Larry Fitzgerald, like last one, really?
Yeah.
To have a long career with one team.
It's not like baseball where, you get these guys. Even baseball, it's hard to do because teams are more proactive. It's like all the general managers who are all the general managers who are employed now grew up playing Madden.
Right.
And like, what did you do in Madden? Like you just traded all your aging
definitely
players
not that
for
way in
first
basketball.
round picks. Yeah.
Definitely not that way in basketball.
Kristaps Porzingis. Like
guys just have like 9 jerseys in their basketball reference page now. Like where like it's just team after team. Like how many teams has Kevin Durant been on? Like the
Thunder.
Actually,
Warriors.
he was on the Sonics first. He was on the Sonics.
Okay, Sonics, Thunder, Warriors, Nets,
Suns.
So it's only 5. I thought it was more.
But he's a player where you would be like,
that's one of the great. He's not like Kevin Garnett. I mean, Kevin Garnett wound up playing for the Nets and the Celtics, but I mean, had the Timberwolves not screwed everything up beyond belief, which they are apt to do, like Kevin Garnett could have been that player.
Tim Duncan, you could say that.
Yeah, Tim Duncan.
Kobe Bryant, you can say that too. But those guys just don't exist anymore.
And like Michael Jordan was a ball until like he had that weird stint with the Wizards. But that was also weird because he like retired for like 2 or 3 years and then he came back.
I think Damian Lillard.
They didn't get rid of him,
right?
But
I think Damian Lillard wants to be like that with the Blazers, but eventually he's going to get traded. He has to. Come on.
Well, that's enough time.
NBA talk
today. Yes, and go watch the draft tonight. And just wait for see what the Timberwolves will do with the 53rd overall pick. All right, let's go. That's all the time we have for the Viking Age podcast. We do this right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel every Monday and Thursday. We're also in podcast form the very next day on Apple and Spotify. But however you catch us, make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. For Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. We'll catch you next time on the Viking Age podcast.